Have you ever failed an exam and how do you deal with it? Okay, so I got another interesting question. How do you deal with heartbreak? Greetings and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about realistic advice for high school students. Now, I did graduate from high school like last year on a gap year, headed to Stanford, and I feel like there are a few things that I would have liked to tell myself when I was in high school. This video is going to try to cover everything from academics to social life to relationships to anything that you could possibly imagine anybody would face in high school and you could face in high school. This video is going to try to answer all of that. So I put out a bunch of questions on my Instagram and we're going to be going through them one by one. Just before this video starts, if you are new to the channel, it would mean a lot if you could hit the little subscribe button down there and you could drop a like. That's how you guys can tell YouTube that this is content you like watching. And if you've not seen the full video, then you're not sure will I even like this, but just have a little bit of faith in me. I promise I will be able to deliver. So yeah, let's head into the video. Okay, so the first question comes from Nikhil and he asks, how do you deal with the afternoon productivity slump? So I've gotten a lot of questions about productivity, about how do you maintain motivation and keep motivation, and also just like when you are feeling low, how do you still get yourself to work? The most important tip that I ever received was try to find things that energize you and make sure that you're not doing things that engage you. Now, there's a small difference between the two, but basically what it means is that let's say you have a break, right? You know, during the afternoon period, you get like a 20-minute break to do something. Engaging means something has grabbed your attention. So that can be your phone. Sometimes if there's drama, then that's also extremely engaging. Sometimes you're debating with someone and that can be super engaging as well. But engaging doesn't necessarily mean energizing. There are a lot of times when something has grabbed your attention, but after finishing it, you feel a lot more tired than you did before and it doesn't necessarily motivate you. So try to identify the things that engage you but don't necessarily energize you, and try to find things that actually give you energy and motivation to do things. So for example, for me, sometimes when I watch like a really nice film, I get quite energized. Sometimes if I talk to my family, I get energized. Sometimes when I talk to my friends, it's a few particular friends, I get really energized as well. Sometimes if I take a shower, I feel energized. So try to find a few things that after completing which you feel like you have motivation to do more. Jacob Chaco, who is my best friend, asks, how many best friends do you need? Jacob, I only think you need one best friend. But the answer really depends from person to person. I think the larger thing that the question's kind of addressing without necessarily getting too deep is like, how many friend groups do you need? What should your social life look like at high school? And everybody has their own idea of a social life. Some people like the fact that they have tons and tons of friends while not necessarily having too many deep relationships. While I know some people, and even myself included, some people like to have like really small and tight-knit friend groups, but then you have much tighter relationships with each of those people. So I think it's important to find a balance. But in general, when it comes to social life in high school, I think the thing that helped me the most is finding your people. And that's kind of a vague term, but just finding a group in which you feel at home, where you feel like you don't have to act like somebody else, where you feel like, you know, you don't necessarily have to be somebody else who continuously try to impress someone. And I think when you're most comfortable in that group, then you've officially found your people. For anybody who does not think that they found their people yet, that's perfectly fine. I still remember in middle school, I had, switch sections and I was in the opposite end of the grade where all of my friends were in the other end. And I kind of drifted from one social circle to another social circle because I didn't really feel like I fit in anywhere. And I think there are a few things that can help you fit in. One is just, noticing how you feel whenever you're talking to those individuals. If you feel like you don't have to act like somebody else, if you feel like you can be yourself, then that's a really good start. Another thing that helps is finding a group of people who are interested in the same thing that you are. So I think in early high school, I also found another small friend group where they were all interested in debating and they were all interested in MUN. And I think that really, really helped me because we all sort of had this one thing that we bonded over, but then we also all got to know each other as people as well. They were hilarious. They were super, super smart. So it was just a nice friend group to be in. I never considered myself a part of just one group when I was in high school as well. I kind of just fluttered from here to there because I feel like it's okay to have different friend groups because each of them might bring out a different side of you as well. Don't feel the need to like bind yourself down to any one person or one group in high school. As long as when you need someone, that someone is there for you, I think you're good to go. There's no real number that you need to just strive for. Another person asks, how do you spot a toxic friend and cut them off? I think that's a good question. And I don't think that I've had a toxic friendship, touch wood. But I do think that the best way to spot one is, like, there's this term I sort of thought of when I was in high school. It's not original or anything, but it's this idea of just like a well-wisher. So, if you achieve something or if you get something and you notice that there are some people who immediately congratulate you, where there are others who are kind of lukewarm about how they feel about your achievement, then those people aren't your well-wishers. So finding the people who are extremely happy and will congratulate you and will be there for you and support you in your moments of achievement is a really good way to tell if they're actually, your well-wishers or if they're not your well-wishers. And also, whenever you're feeling down or whenever you make a mistake, who's there for you as well. So seeing the people at your lows is obviously something everybody knows, but it's a lot harder to find the people who don't like it when you go too high and you achieve something. So making sure you can find a well-wisher is great, and then cutting them off. I think that, there's no right way to do it. Everybody navigates their social relationships a little differently, but I'm the kind of person I would just like disassociate myself from them, and I would be blunt with them. I wouldn't really beat around the bush. I'm not known to be someone who beats around the bush too much. So yeah, I just be straight with them. I got another interesting question. How do you deal with heartbreak? That's an interesting question. I didn't expect to get one in How to Survive High School, but I might as well. So I've been on both sides of a breakup. I think, I've been at the side where I've been broken up with, and then I've also done the breaking up. But the person I broke up with is now my best friend. So I think I handled that well, my best friend Rajoshi. And then how do you deal with a breakup? Okay, so I think there are a few things. I think when you're broken up with, it leads to like a period of time where your self-worth is kind of really low because you feel like, you're not worth much. There must have been a reason someone didn't want to be with you, etc., etc. So I think that you should do things or put yourself in situations where you feel good about yourself and you feel like you're capable of doing something and you feel like you're capable of doing yourself proud and just making yourself happy. So even though for me that wasn't a definitive answer, I remember right after I got broken up with, like, I just went into like a film shoot. Like I just went in, acted, I did script writing, I helped kind of directing the movie as well a little bit. And I think that was, a surrounding and an environment I was really comfortable in and was one of my strengths. So I felt happy and I felt like, I was doing something that was worth my time. And I also managed to distract myself because I was doing things that I enjoyed. I was doing things that made me feel good about myself. I was doing things that energized me, like I said before. So I think that A is really important. And B, then just talking to your friends about it. I think there's no point being shut up about it. Pull the people who are close in your life closer to you because you'll really, really realize their value after that. You can talk to them about it. So yeah, after you surround yourself in an environment where you feel good about yourself, then just move on, to be honest. And that's easier said than done. But I think I was kind of paranoid about why it was bothering me some days, why it wasn't bothering me some days. Like, time really does heal everything. So I think that, just let things take their natural process and you should be good to go. But I think 99% of the time, if it's a bad breakup, then you feel worse about yourself. I think it's a relationship you have with yourself. So you need to fix that relationship first before thinking about the other person involved or anyone else really. So, getting back to loving yourself, getting back to appreciating yourself, getting back to realizing the value of your friends around you and talking to them and your family also. I think those are the most important things whenever you go through any emotionally turbulent time like that. But yeah, I hope that could answer it. Do you ever get stressed about life after school? And if yes, then how do you deal with it? Okay, so when I was in school, even though I was planning, college, I was planning to get into like a nice college and I was, working towards it. I don't think I really stressed about what I do outside of school or after school. For me, I always took high school one day at a time because I feel like there's so many ways that you can just get lost in the future, lost in the past. And then the moment you're done, thinking about the future and the past, you're already in the future. And then you've forgotten your present and your present becomes your past, which is really unfortunate, because I still think I probably had some of the best times of my life in high school and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So yeah, take it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, and everything just becomes so much easier. Yeah, that's my suggestion. How do you deal with being overwhelmed? So I think that's a really good question. And I think When it comes to being overwhelmed, what I've realized is super helpful is just like taking everything in your head and putting it outside of your head to look at it. So I would usually just like suggest you write everything down or type everything out, whatever you're feeling. And that doesn't have to be just the facts. It can also be the feelings associated with the facts. So if you're feeling, stressed about something, write it down. And I think the moment you bring it outside of just your head onto a sheet of paper or onto like a laptop, it becomes a lot easier to comprehend. And I think after that, just ask yourself which one of these things is stressing me out the most. Like I think of it as like the big monster. What's the big monster? What's the biggest challenge that you have on this list? And just go 100% at it, finish it off, diminish it, defeat it. And then after that, each of the other tasks seem just a lot easier to deal with. Have you ever failed an exam and how do you deal with it? Okay, so I haven't failed, but I've definitely done extremely bad and I've definitely been really stressed for an exam. So might as well tell you that story. So this was my physics exam, I'd say in 12th grade. So this isn't even like it's like old news or something. I bombed this test in 12th. In my last year of high school, it was my midterm exam. And I think the syllabus was just a lot. It was like really, like if you haven't seen a physics textbook, it's like huge, and it's my only science, so I'm not gonna act like a science student, but I was not ready for this test. I had not studied smartly, which meant that I spent a lot of time on a few chapters, and the rest of the chapters I was just quite blank with, to be honest. I knew a little bit, but it just was not working out for me, and it reached the point where it was like 11 p.m. or maybe 12 a.m. before the exam started. So this is like the night of the exam, and I couldn't do it. I just broke down. I started crying. And I've never, ever cried because of academics in my life. I've just never given it that much importance. In my mind, I was always like, if you do well, it's okay. Just put in the effort, right? But in this case, I just felt like I wasn't ready to take the exam. In all cases, I've been ready, like kind of ready, like how much can you control, right? But for this one instance, I was just like, I can't take it. Like I literally did not want to take this paper. And I just sat on my desk and I just I broke down, and even my parents got scared because they've never seen me, get upset about a paper before the paper is even started. Like, have you ever seen someone like cry before the paper? Like people cry after the paper if they do bad. Like I was crying before only. So that happened, and then I kind of settled myself. I settled my nerves. I studied for another 2 or 3 hours. My dad ordered me a brownie. Had the brownie. The brownie tasted really nice. I sucked up my tears like, it's a nice brownie. But then I just went into the paper after that. I was on maybe like 2 hours of sleep, maybe an hour and a half of sleep. I took it. Obviously I didn't do well. I think I got in my 70s, which you might be listening to this and you'd be like, oh my god, Shaurya, like that's your failed. But for me it was just the idea that I didn't feel prepared to take the exam. So like whenever I look at exams in school, I never saw it as how did you get? For me, it's always been like and this is how I've been brought up, but how much effort did you put into study for it, and did you feel prepared? So if you put in your all, then the result doesn't matter as much. But if you didn't put in your all and you don't feel prepared, then obviously something went wrong. So that's, I think, what I felt really guilty about, that something didn't go right in my preparation, and I admitted that to myself. And interestingly, that's not my only story with physics. In 10th grade, I lost my physics textbook. This is again for like a final exam in my school. I lost my physics textbook, and I didn't realize I lost it until the day before my physics exam. And you might be wondering, Shaurya, were you not studying physics? And the answer is no. I took it kind of casually, which is strange considering how I struggle with solely just that subject. But I took it lightly. I realized I didn't have the paper, and then I got my friend. His name is Ayush Datta. Ayush, I love you if you're watching this. I got him to send me like 2 entire chapters just in pictures. So he sent me like 60 pictures. And he couldn't even scan his textbook either, so he just sent me so many pictures, and I was just studying from pictures. And then my parents came in and asked, why are you looking into your phone and studying? And then I told them. Then they freaked out. Then we went and got another textbook, and I pulled like an all-nighter for that test. Did really bad because obviously I was on no sleep, had barely prepared for the exam. So yeah, I think if there's anything you should take away from this, A, make sure you have your physics textbooks before any big exam. B, don't take an exam on no sleep. I think even half an hour or 45 minutes of sleep is better than no sleep. And C, even if you feel underprepared, don't lose faith in yourself. Like the moment I cried for that 12th grade physics exam, I think it was a sign to myself that I'd lost faith and I didn't think I could do well. Don't bring yourself to that point. Like always have that trust and faith in yourself. And I think it's just an exam. What's the worst that can happen? Like don't miss the exam because you think you're not going to do well. Just take it and just see whatever happens. Take it as a learning lesson, move on. So yeah, that was my semi-traumatic experience with physics in high school. Another question is, how do you build a good relationship with your teachers? How do you impress your teachers? What do you do if a teacher is mad at you? I do think teachers have a really important role to play in high school, because I have seen students get unfairly or fairly labeled in particular stereotypes, and then it's very hard for them to break out of it, and they're constantly being compared to like this imaginary playing field where they're just not going to be good enough, they're not good enough, and it can be very damaging. So I think that the relationship you have with your teacher is really, really important, because they can teach you so much, and also if that relationship goes bad, then it can just be a really terrible experience for you in the classroom. So I think a few things I would say is, number one, enthusiasm. I think that people really, really underestimate the power of enthusiasm in a classroom. I think that if you're enthusiastic as a student, you're definitely going to be going a long way. You just need to show that you want to learn. You need to show that you want to listen to your teacher, and they will appreciate it so much, because especially in COVID learning, nobody comes across as enthusiastic over the camera with their video off and their mic off half the time. So showing enthusiasm is really important. First impressions matter so much more than you think. If a teacher has a bad experience with you in the first class, it is hard for them. It's hard for anyone to overturn that first impression, because that first impression just sticks in your head. So make sure that the first impression is a good impression, even though that's common advice. I have seen it to be true. And the third thing is growth. If you do get a bad first impression, if you don't perform well in the beginning, show that you're capable of growing. Show that when your tests, show that in the amount of effort you're putting in the class, show that in your homework assignments. I think it's really, really important to show that you're not the same student you were when they first met you. And they can be some of the most interesting mentors you can have if you're interested in a subject. So don't underestimate the power that a teacher can have in your life. Everybody says this. The last question I got is all about, how do you stay focused for a long period of time while you're studying? How do you manage your time effectively? And I think that, I have a few videos on productivity in general. I would say three very quick things. Number one, have a system in place instead of, focusing on your motivation to get you through things, because the reality of it is you're bound to procrastinate. And if you have a structure in place, for example, if you use Notion, or you use a diary, or you use a journal, or you use your notes section on your phone, anything that records and keeps you in track and holds you accountable is super, super important to have. So structure and systems will always, always take precedence over just the motivation you have in that small period of time, or relying on your memory to remember things, because your memory is going to fail you so many times. You're going to forget about that small class test the next day. You're going to forget about that homework assignment you had to give in. Just remember that. The second thing for time management and focusing is that I would say avoid state transitioning cues. And what I mean by that is, if you're focusing on like a homework assignment, don't do anything that is going to change your mind state from that homework assignment. So for example, if you even scroll through Instagram once while you're doing your homework, you get that really quick hit of dopamine. You get that really quick, just gratifying feeling that you've done something, or something makes you happy on that platform. It just changes your focus and changes your state. And the moment you change your state, it's much harder to come back originally to how you were originally feeling about your homework. And it's much harder to get back into that zone and in the grind. So I would say that if you're doing something, try your best not to deviate into anything that can possibly change your mind state. And the last thing that I would say is super, super important for time management is just prioritization. If you are unable to prioritize, you're going to have a really hard time in high school, because it's important to remember that you have to pick your battles. Some of them might not be worth fighting, and some of them are worth the amount of effort that you can put into them. So for example, for my homework assignments, I didn't necessarily put too much effort into my homework, just because I knew that, especially in an Indian high school, it doesn't amount to much. It's good practice and stuff like that, but it's not going to change your final grade. So as long as I was a good student inside the classroom, as long as I was performing well on my exams, I didn't really care much about my homework. This might be controversial advice, but the idea is that you should pick your battles. You can't possibly give 100% of yourself to every homework assignment or every classroom assignment, because then your extracurricular activities are going to suffer. So yeah, pick your battles is the last piece of advice I'd give for time management and just focusing and doing well inside the classroom. But yeah, guys, that was every single thing in this video. I hope this realistic advice to survive in high school guide helped you. I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, hit the subscribe button if you are new to this channel. I would really appreciate it, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.